Hi there. I live in the Tulelake Basin in California. And it is the weirdest place I could ever have imagined being. It's beautiful. It's unusual. It used to be a lake, as I understand it, back in the day. And they drained the lake somehow. And now what used to be the lake is agricultural land primarily. And I don't know if you've ever given any thought to what goes on at the bottom of a lake, but there's an accumulation of biological material over the lifespan of the lake that has composted and decayed and become nutrients for the soil. So this is some incredibly rich land. There's also a bird sanctuary or a wildlife sanctuary nearby, and so there are a lot of interesting birds and roving things that I had never run into before. Elk, for instance. Antelope, I guess. I don't know if they're elk. They're antelope. Look at that heron. Can you see him? You don't find those just flying around anywhere. That's a great big bird, and he's beautiful. Anyway, so this is the area that I am blessed to occupy, and I think it's worth mentioning because it is as a community, it's pretty solid. People here like each other. They cooperate with each other. They look out for each other. But commercially, it's a dying area. It's like a community and hospice commercially. And that's because, as I understand it, I wasn't here, so this is all secondhand information to me. But about 20 years ago, this was a booming area, and you can tell that by looking at the town of Tulelake, which is proximate to where I am at the moment. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute because it's too hard to talk and drive at the same time. We'll just look out the window. The town of Tulelake has all the infrastructure that you would expect in an absolutely adorable American small town. Yeah, you can see the crack in my windshield there, and that's disgraceful. They have a bowling alley, they have a movie theater, they had a proper-sized supermarket, all kinds of restaurants, a fancy hotel. And then 20 years ago, there was a conflict over the irrigation water. In fact, at the moment, I am driving along what they call the canal, the irrigation canal. Let me see if I can show you that. Yeah, there it is. There's the canal. And these canals flow all over this whole basin. And they run the water from, I guess it's from, I don't know, Klamath Lake? Anyway, it's one of the lakes just north of here. They run the water from there down through these canals, and you pay money, the farmers pay money to God, I'm stumbling over my own words. They pay money to the irrigation district, and the irrigation district then allocates them a certain amount of water to use for their crops. And the crops that are common here are things like alfalfa, hay, potatoes, garlic. Apparently they grow a lot of peppermint, although I haven't seen much of that. I did see one cornfield. But the thing is that, as you see, there's very little. There are very few trees, and the sun, therefore, is, constant. And the soil is so rich. Anyway, anything grows here. I'm convinced that you could grow anything you wanted to here. I guess there are some, chemical issues with the soil. However, I don't think it would take much to remedy that. What was I saying? Oh, about the, right. So 20 years ago, there became an issue about the water because there were fish that were not doing well in whatever environment they were in, and the concern was that the irrigation water being drained from the lake was somehow responsible for this. And so for 2 years, as I understand it, they didn't irrigate. They didn't send the irrigation water. And so farmers naturally went belly up. And the community was decimated. I'm looking here at this pile of sludge they've taken out of the ditch. What's interesting about it is, see all those little shells? You know, that's the local, that's what you find in the ground around here, because these were all little snails, I think, that were in the lake, or that initiated there. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway. So 20 years ago, a lot of farmers went out of business, and the town dried up. If you drive through Tulelake now, the grocery store is still there, but it's barely a grocery store. It's really a sort of an exaggerated liquor store is what it is, with some snacks and things. I mean, you can get a few essentials. Then there's an expensive little privately owned convenience store, and a store that is owned by Mexican immigrants and carries a lot of products that appeal to the agricultural workers here, who are largely Hispanic, I think. But all of the other buildings are rotting, and they're beginning to fall down, and they're getting condemned. And look at all these frogs. That's fabulous. And it's too bad. It's too bad, because this is such a beautiful area, and the people here are so worthwhile. And the resources here, the natural resources, are tremendous. We're in such a good location here. You know, we're not close to I-5, which I consider an advantage, but we are, you know, you can get from here to Reno, you can get from here to Redding. Not that Redding's a big metropolis, but they do have a decent airport. Medford has also a good, I think the Medford airport is international. And it's all within a couple-hour drive of here. We have the mountains. These are all, I think, I'm fascinated by the volcanic nature of this area. You can't see it now because it's a hazy day, but there are a lot of little bitty cones all over the place that obviously were they remind me of little volcanic boils from what appears to me to be fairly recent geologic history. I wish I knew more about it. Maybe I will know more, and if I do, I'll perhaps pass it on if anyone has any interest in it. But the railroad comes through. But the town of Tulelake is worth rejuvenating, and there is an organization, I guess, dedicated to that. I think you can find their page on Facebook, but this area has everything you could want. You know, we're proximate even to the coast. You could drive to the coast in 3 or 4 hours, easily. Just phenomenal. And the problem, of course, is that the fewer commercial enterprises there are, the fewer there are. You know, the less money that comes here, the less money is drawn here, and it's just a shame. Anyway, so there you have it. That's my introduction of sort of myself, although I guess I didn't talk too much about why I'm even bothering you. But to the area. I take a lot of pictures of how beautiful this area is. I'm not a great photographer. I'm a worse videographer. But this area is you know, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's just beautiful. And I'll post some of those so you can see what I'm talking about. Alrighty, take care.